They laughed at me, called me a gold digger, a sellout, everything you can think of. I didn't care. I was in love. What I didn't know was the man they mocked me for dating had a secret that would flip my whole life upside down. Before I share how my whole world changed, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what happened next. Trust me, you won't believe how it ends. They said I was crazy. I heard it in their voices, even when they tried to sound polite. I saw it in their eyes, the way they'd raise their brows just a little too high, or tilt their heads like they were concerned. But I knew what they really meant. "What's a woman like you doing with a man like that?" They didn't even try to hide it after a while. The whispers became comments, the comments became jokes, and the jokes? Well, some of those came straight to my face. "My name's Talia. I'm a black woman in my early 30s. And no, I don't look like the kind of woman you'd expect to be with someone like him." Michael. He's older, yes. White, clearly. Well-dressed in a way that feels timeless. Button-ups that look tailored but never flashy. Shoes that shine but don't scream. He carries himself with this calm, quiet confidence. The kind of man who doesn't need to say much to make you feel seen. Kind eyes, gentle hands, and something about him that always made me feel safe. I liked that, but the world didn't. The moment I introduced him, even just in conversation, people had questions. How old is he again? Does he even know how to dance? Girl, what are you really doing with him? And when I posted a single picture of us online, just one, a casual shot of us laughing in a park, the backlash came like wildfire. DMS comments. "Gold digger. She's using him. Daddy issues much?" Even people I thought were my friends started treating me differently. Some stopped calling altogether. Others gave those fake supportive smiles, like they were just waiting for it all to crash. But the thing is, I didn't care, not yet anyway. I tried to ignore it at first, the judgment, the stares, the awkward silences, the fake laughs when I said his name. But it was everywhere. At brunch with my girls, one of them straight up said, "So, you really gonna be his nurse or his girlfriend?" Everyone laughed like it was just a joke, but I didn't. It wasn't funny, not to me. My cousin called me late one night just to say, "Talia, don't embarrass the family." Embarrass the family? For what? Loving someone who treats me better than any man my age ever has? It wasn't just the age thing, though. I could feel it. The unspoken part no one wanted to say out loud. He's white. I'm not. And apparently, that was just too much for people to handle. Like I was supposed to stay inside some invisible box of who I was allowed to love, as if skin color or age somehow meant our love was less real. People looked at me like I had a price tag on my forehead, like they assumed I was only in it for what he had, even though, at the time, I honestly thought he was just a regular guy. Kind, quiet, maybe comfortable, but nothing extravagant. He never bragged, never flashed anything, just like simple things. Old books, jazz, walking in quiet places. But the more people talked, the more I started questioning myself. Was I doing something wrong? Was I being naive? Maybe they saw something I didn't. Maybe he was hiding something. Maybe I was the fool. I started pulling back emotionally, just a little. I didn't even realize I was doing it until he asked me, "Is everything okay?" I lied and said I was just tired. But inside, I was exhausted from all the noise. The judgment was heavy, and I was carrying it alone. People saw our relationship as a scandal. I just saw him as someone who made me feel calm in a world that never stopped spinning. I thought I was prepared for criticism. I wasn't. And yet, something inside me said, "Hold on, Talia. Just wait. There's more to this story." And oh, there really was. It's funny how life works. I didn't meet him on a dating app or through some setup. No algorithm, no matchmaking. Just one ordinary Tuesday afternoon in a bookstore I almost didn't go into. I had just gotten off work early, exhausted and craving peace, and something told me to stop by this quiet little used bookstore downtown. The kind with creaky floors and that soft, dusty paper smell. I wasn't looking for anyone. Honestly, I wasn't even in the mood to talk. I was flipping through an old poetry book when I heard this calm, deep voice behind me say, "That one always breaks my heart a little." I turned around, and there he was. Michael, button-down shirt, glasses in his hand, a book tucked under his arm. Something about the way he stood, like he belonged there, like he'd been there 1,000 times, made me pause. I smiled politely and said, "Yeah? You read poetry?" He grinned. "Only when I'm feeling brave." That was our first real conversation, right there, between the poetry and history sections. Nothing forced, nothing flashy. We talked about books, music, our favorite cities. Time just disappeared. He didn't hit on me, didn't make it weird. He treated me like a person, not a prize or a project. When he asked if I wanted to grab a coffee, I hesitated, but something in his voice made me say yes. It was the most natural first date I've ever had. No pretense, no flexing, just two people sharing stories. Over the next few weeks, we kept seeing each other. Walks in the park, dinner at quiet little spots, endless talks about life. He listened like he actually cared. No scrolling, no fake nodding. Just present, in the moment. And no, he never mentioned money. Not once. He never tried to impress me with anything material. He drove a simple car, wore the same watch every day, never name-dropped anyone. He didn't look rich. He looked like peace. That's why I fell for him. Not because of who people thought he was, or who they thought I was, but because in a world full of noise and pretending, he was real. I just didn't know how much he was holding back. For a while, everything felt easy, like I was floating through this quiet, beautiful dream with someone who really saw me. But then, like life always does, reality started creeping in. Michael was private, like really private. He didn't talk much about his past. I knew small things. He'd been married once, didn't have kids, spent a lot of time abroad, but nothing deep. Whenever I asked about his work, he'd just say, "I help manage a few things," and leave it at that. At first, I didn't push it. I liked that he wasn't full of ego, but after a while, it started to feel weird, like he was hiding something. He never invited me to his place, always came to mine or picked neutral spots. And when I'd ask about where he lived, he'd smile and say, "It's quiet." You'd hate it. I thought maybe he was just shy, or maybe embarrassed. Some part of me even wondered, was he broke? Was this some kind of act? The people around me didn't help either. My best friend said, "Talia, you sure this man doesn't have a whole other family somewhere?" My uncle? He's either hiding money or a criminal record. I laughed them off, but truthfully, I started wondering. He never posted on social media, didn't follow me, didn't like any of my pictures. "I don't really do all that," he said. And maybe that's true, but in today's world, it made me pause. One night, I got in my head and just asked him flat out, "Is there something I should know about you?" He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "There's a lot about me you don't know yet, but nothing you need to be afraid of." And you know what? That made me feel worse. Because what does that even mean? Part of me wanted to walk away. I didn't want to be blindsided or made a fool of. But something deeper, something gut level, kept me hanging on. He never gave me a reason not to trust him. But the silence was starting to feel loud, and I couldn't help but wonder, was this too good to be true? Turns out it wasn't too good. It was just different, bigger than anything I could have imagined. It started with little things. Small, thoughtful moments that at first just felt sweet, but then slowly started feeling unusual. One day, we were walking downtown, and I casually mentioned I loved this old local bakery that had closed during the pandemic. A few weeks later, we were walking the same street, and it was open again. I stopped in my tracks. Did they reopen? I asked, completely shocked. He looked over and just said, "Yeah, I heard the owner got some help." That was it. No big deal, no explanation. I brushed it off. Maybe he just meant some investor came through. Another time, my best friend was stressing about her student loans. She'd been venting over brunch, and I told Michael about it later in passing. 2 weeks later, she called me crying. Someone had anonymously paid off half her balance. I asked him if it was him. He smiled and said, "Some people deserve a break." I should have connected the dots right then, but honestly, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. He didn't carry himself like a millionaire. He wasn't flashy. No Rolex, no designer everything, no big cars. Just small, quiet acts that started to feel a little too generous, and it kept happening. One night, I was late to meet him for dinner because my car wouldn't start. I showed up frustrated, talking about how I needed to get it checked. He nodded, listened, then changed the subject like always. The next day, a brand new car was parked in my driveway. At first, I thought someone made a mistake, maybe a neighbor. But no, there was a little envelope on the windshield, just my name on the front. Inside was a note that said, "You deserve to feel safe and taken care of. No strings attached." That's when I realized this wasn't normal generosity. This wasn't just kindness. This man had money, real money. I confronted him again, not out of anger, but confusion. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Why won't you tell me who you really are?" He just looked at me gently and said, "Because who I am doesn't matter as much as who you are when you're with me." It shook me because now I knew something big was coming. So one weekend, Michael invited me to spend a couple of days away from the city. He said he wanted to take me somewhere peaceful, just the two of us. I assumed it would be a cute little cabin or maybe a quiet Airbnb somewhere in the hills. I even packed light, sweats, a book, a hoodie, and no makeup. He picked me up early Saturday morning in his usual understated way. Basic rental SUV, coffee in hand, smiling like we were just going for a drive. We drove for about an hour and a half. Long roads, winding turns, trees getting taller, houses getting further apart. And then we turned onto a private road. I remember saying, "Are we allowed to be here?" He just chuckled and said, "You'll see." We pulled up to a massive iron gate, like something out of a movie. Not a nice neighborhood gate, a private estate gate. It slowly opened after he tapped a code into a stone pillar. My jaw dropped. "What is this?" I asked, half laughing, half shaking. He smiled but didn't answer. We kept driving down this long gravel road that curved through trees and opened into this stunning view. Rolling hills, perfectly kept gardens, a fountain in the middle of a circular driveway, and the house. Except it wasn't a house. It was a mansion, a literal estate. Not loud or gaudy, just quiet, elegant, old world kind of beautiful. Ivy crawling up stone walls, tall windows, wooden doors with carvings. It looked like something from Europe, not here. "This can't be where we're staying," I whispered. Michael parked, turned to me, and said, "Welcome to my home." I stared at him. "Your home?" He nodded. I didn't speak. I didn't even move. I just sat there, staring at the building, trying to make it make sense. Everything I thought I knew about him started shifting right then. Inside, it was just as surreal. Antique furniture, real art, not Prince art. Every room smelled like cedar and candles. There was a fireplace that looked older than both of us put together. But the weirdest part? There were no photos, No signs of a flashy life, no butlers, no chefs. Just silence, books, and a man who somehow lived in this palace like it was just normal. I asked him again, Michael, what is this? Who are you? He said, Talia, I was hoping you'd fall in love with the man, not the house. And just like that, my heart cracked a little. Because I had. But now, I wasn't sure what I had gotten myself into. I needed answers, real ones. After that weekend, after seeing the house, the land, the life, I couldn't just pretend like nothing had changed. Something had changed. My heart was still in it, but my mind was racing. So, a few days later, I asked him calmly but firmly to tell me the truth. No riddles, I said. No mystery. I need to know who I'm really with. He nodded, sat down beside me, and for the first time since we met, he told me everything. Michael, his full name being Michael Rutherford Hale, wasn't just well off. He was a legacy. His grandfather had built one of the largest private shipping empires in the country back in the 1950s. His father had expanded it into global logistics and rare commodities. And Michael? He turned it into a digital gold mine, quietly investing in emerging tech and sustainable energy long before it was trendy. He never wanted fame, never liked attention, said it always clouded real relationships, turned conversations into transactions. So he stepped away from the public side of the business years ago and let others run the operations. He lived modestly on purpose to avoid being used. I sat there stunned. You're telling me you're a billionaire? He smiled slightly. On paper, maybe, but money doesn't mean much unless it buys you peace. That's all I really want. Then he looked at me, dead in the eyes, and said, That's why I never told you. I needed to know if you saw me, not just the myth. And the truth? I did. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't overwhelmed. Part of me felt small, insecure, like I didn't belong in that world of generational wealth, estates, and silent power. I kept thinking, what do I even bring to the table? I'm just a girl with dreams, a 9 to 5, and student loans. But then he said something I'll never forget. You bring you. That's what I don't have. That's what I need. And I believed him. He wasn't perfect. He had his walls, his scars, his reasons. But through all the mystery, what stayed the same was his kindness, his calm, his respect for me. That part, the real part, never changed. Still, now that I knew the truth, our story wasn't just about love anymore. It was about how the world would see us, how I would be seen. Because suddenly, I wasn't just dating an older white man, I was dating a man richer than kings. And now everybody would have something to say. I wish I could say things got easier after I found out the truth. But honestly, that's when the real noise started. People found out, fast. I didn't even tell anyone at first. I was still processing it myself. But somehow, the whispers began. Maybe it was someone who recognized his name, or maybe someone followed a breadcrumb I didn't even know I dropped. It started small. A coworker who normally ignored me suddenly wanted to know everything about my mystery man. Another girl at work, who never even liked me, suddenly invited me out for drinks. Everyone became curious, but not in a sweet way. It was like I had become this walking headline. Black woman snags billionaire. They didn't see me. They saw a story. Some people were subtle with their shade. Wow, you must have really impressed him. Others weren't even trying to hide it. Girl, teach me how to land one of those. Like I was some kind of lucky lottery winner. Like I hadn't spent months building something real with this man before I even knew what he was worth. Even people close to me started switching up. My cousin, the same one who told me not to embarrass the family, she suddenly wanted to hang out more, asked me if he had a brother. My best friend started hinting at gifts. I mean, if he's got it, why not share it, right? And then came the internet. That one picture I'd posted of us months ago resurfaced. People started speculating in the comments. That's the guy who owns Hale Global? Someone found a blurry photo of him from a business event and posted it next to mine. It went viral. Overnight, I had strangers in my DMs calling me a gold digger, a sellout, a liar. I didn't ask for any of this. And through it all, Michael remained calm. He held my hand, told me to breathe, said it would pass. But I wasn't used to this. I didn't grow up rich. I didn't know how to navigate fake friends, passive aggressive coworkers, or the weird attention from people who now looked at me like I was a symbol instead of a person. I thought, maybe this is too much. Maybe I'm not cut out for his world. And then one night I broke down. Tears, fears, all of it. I told him I felt like I was losing myself. He held me, said, then let's disappear for a while, just you and me. No money, no headlines, no noise, and that's exactly what we did. But little did I know, he was planning something I never could have imagined. After everything, the whispers, the judgment, the constant questions, I was emotionally drained. I needed air, space, a break from being that girl dating the billionaire. Michael knew. He always seemed to know when I was about to hit my breaking point. So one evening he told me to pack a bag. Nothing fancy, he said, just things that make you feel comfortable. We drove out of the city again, but this time it wasn't to his mansion. It was to a small lake cabin tucked between tall pines and silence. No signal, no headlines, just peace. We stayed there for days, no phones, no schedules. We cooked together, read by the fire, talked for hours. I felt myself coming back to life. Myself, not the woman people thought they knew, not the girl with the rich man, just Talia. And then, on the third night, everything shifted. We were sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the stars when he turned to me and said, Talia, I've been thinking a lot about what kind of life we could build on our terms, away from the noise. I nodded, thinking he was just venting. But then he pulled out a box, not a flashy one, not velvet, just simple, honest. Inside was a ring, vintage, delicate, not oversized. Nothing that screamed wealth. It looked like me. He didn't go down on one knee. He didn't make a speech. He just looked at me, held my hand, and said, I don't care what the world says. I just want you to be my peace, and I want to be yours. Will you marry me? And in that moment, it didn't matter how rich he was, or how many people judged us, or how messy things had been. All I saw was the man who made me feel seen, safe, and deeply loved. I said yes, not to his money, not to the life he could offer, but to the man who chose me when he didn't have to. That night, under a sky full of stars, everything changed. Not because he was rich, but because we were finally free to write our story, our way. Looking back, I used to think love had to look a certain way, that it had to be picture perfect, that the people around me had to approve, that our backgrounds had to match. Skin tone, culture, class, age, all of it. But I was wrong. What I learned through all of this is that real love doesn't need to follow a formula. It just needs to be real. Michael didn't sweep me off my feet with grand gestures at first. He showed up with calm energy, with patience, with consistency. He never asked me to change, never made me feel like I had to prove myself. And when the world started throwing stones, when people mocked, doubted, or tried to tear us apart, he stayed solid. He never ran, never hid, just stood beside me, quietly loving me through it all. I learned that people will always have opinions, always judge what they don't understand. Some will say, I got lucky. Others will say, I sold out. And honestly, let them talk. Because what they don't see are the nights we cried together, the deep conversations about fear and healing, the way he held my hand in silence when I had no words left, the way we laugh until our stomachs hurt over the smallest, dumbest things. This journey taught me how much strength it takes to choose love in a world full of assumptions. Yes, he's older. Yes, he's white. Yes, he's wealthy beyond anything I could have dreamed. But none of that is why I said yes. I said yes because he treats my heart like it's made of gold, even though he's the one with all the gold. I used to think I had to shrink myself to fit into someone else's life. Now I know I was always enough, just as I am. And if someone's love makes you feel more like you, not less, hold on to that. Because that kind of love, that's rare. That's the kind of love worth fighting for. So, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening, for keeping an open heart, for letting me tell my story, even if it's not what you expected. I know it sounds like a fairy tale. A black girl from a regular life ends up with a rich, older white man who treats her like a queen. But this wasn't about luck. It wasn't about gold digging, and it definitely wasn't about chasing a lifestyle. It was about two people who should have never crossed paths, finding something real in each other. The truth is, I almost let other people's voices drown out my own. The judgment, the assumptions, the stereotypes, it nearly made me walk away from the best thing that's ever happened to me. But I didn't, because I remembered who I was before the world told me who I should be. And if I could say anything to anyone watching this right now, it's this: protect your peace, trust your instincts, and never let the world shame you for how your heart chooses to love. People will project their fears onto you. They'll mock what they don't understand. They'll laugh at your happiness just because it doesn't fit into their box. Let them. Let them talk while you build something beautiful. Because at the end of the day, none of those people are there when the lights go out, and it's just you and the person you love. None of them carry your heart. None of them get a say in your joy. Only you do. And one last thing. To the girl out there questioning if she's worthy, if someone like her could ever be loved like this, hear me now. You are. Don't shrink. Don't doubt. Don't dim your light to make others comfortable. The right one will see all of you and never flinch. That's what happened to me. And if it happened for me, it can happen for you. If this story touched you, share it. Share it with a friend who needs to believe in love again. Drop a comment. Let me know what you would have done in my shoes. And most importantly, subscribe, because this is just one story, and I've got so many more to tell.